All right. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight as we converse with the leaders of two Moms for Liberty chapters in upstate New York. My name is Bridget Heap.
And I'm Carrie McMillan, and Bridget and I are research associates with Feed My Sheep Foundation. Feed My Sheep is a nonprofit organization focused on promoting a biblical worldview. And Feed My Sheep is also a part of the Center for Childhood Innocence, which is a New York State effort to protect kids from harmful instruction. Bridget and I are also members of the Protect Child Health Coalition, which is a national group working toward the same effort.
And we are so grateful to be hosting this third We Don't Stand Alone webinar. Our goal through this series is to encourage people with the work that others are doing to protect kids from gender ideology and inappropriate sexualized material. We recognize that one of the most effective ways for change to occur is through local efforts, through the moms, dads, grandparents, youth leaders, and community members to be willing to speak out and address concerns with their local districts.
And Moms for Liberty groups are popping up across the nation to do this. So their effort is to fight for the survival of America by unifying, educating, and empowering parents to defend their parental rights at all levels of government. And we had the pleasure of collaborating with several Moms for Liberty groups thus far and discussing how to address gender ideology and the sexualization of kids in schools. So I have the pleasure tonight of introducing Miss Jennifer Williams. Jennifer was born and raised in Central New York. She is a veteran of the U.S. Air Force, wife and mom of 4 children, 2 of whom are still in high school. She is the author of the Substack blog entitled The Accidental Activist Writes, which focuses on the culture of education during these difficult times. Jennifer is the winner of the first ever Mercy Otis Warren Award presented to her in Tampa, Florida last year by Moms for Liberty National Leadership. The award honored her work as a writer and speaker that inspired others to service. Moms for Liberty of Wayne County, New York started in July of 2021 when Jennifer realized she needed a firebrand to give her and the other parents a stronger voice in her community. Since then, Moms for Liberty of Wayne County has been able to elect 5 new school board members in their first election cycle, and they are just getting started. So thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
And
Sorry.
No, that's okay. And I have the honor to introduce Jackie Best. Jackie is chair of the Erie County chapter of Moms for Liberty. She and her husband, Ben, have 3 kids, ages 15, 6, and 5. And Jackie is also an accidental activist, having no previous experience or interest in school boards or politics. She attended her first school board meeting in May of 2021 and was at every monthly meeting thereafter for over a year and a half. So in the spring of 2022, Jackie ran with 2 other moms for Board of Education seats. And while they were unsuccessful, they garnered over 1,000 votes each, which is unheard of in a race that usually has 600 votes total. So after the election, Jackie started a Moms for Liberty chapter to bring together all 29 districts in her county. And throughout the past 2 years, Jackie has attended and organized peaceful protests and rallies against medical mandates and the sexualization of public school children. And she continues to file FOIAs and requests for pornographic books in school libraries to be removed or better labeled. And her Moms for Liberty members regularly attend and speak at area school board meetings in order to bring about change. So thank you so much, Jackie, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So as we have a conversation with Jackie and Jennifer, we ask that you please feel free to text in any questions or comments that you have, and we'll have a chance to answer questions that come through. So you can find the texting phone number on the screen. You should be able to see that now. And the phone number is 833-942-6158. Again, that's 833-942-6158.
All right. Well, we appreciate both of you for joining us this evening for this webinar. So our goal for tonight is to encourage others as they consider getting involved, or maybe they're already working to combat indoctrination in their schools, and we just want to encourage them. So tonight we'll be asking both of you questions so that you can share the work that you're doing in your regions with others across New York and across the country. So to start off, Jackie, can you please tell us a little bit about your group in Erie County?
Sure, thank you. Well, as you mentioned in the introduction, you know, I've been working in my local district where my kids go for a few years now. And what we realized, we meaning the other parents locally, we realized as we went to school board meetings and then tried to campaign for school board ourselves, that there were moms and dads trying to do the same thing in a lot of other districts within our county. And so, like the intro said, when we did not win for school board election, we kind of thought, well, why can't we continue this but band together? The teachers unions and other organizations that are implementing this are very organized, and they do it on a large scale. And so we needed to band together. And I had always during that 2 year period of time, I had seen YouTube videos and just videos pop up where moms and dads were talking at school
Yep.
board meetings, and they were saying the exact same thing that I was saying. And they were always wearing a Moms for Liberty shirt. And so I always was like, what is this thing? And when the election didn't work out the way we planned, I immediately started the process, and that's how it started for me.
Wow, that's awesome. All right, so Jennifer, would you mind just sharing with us a little bit about your group then?
It's so funny because my story is almost exactly the same as Jackie's. I didn't run for school board yet. I'm not gonna, just FYI. But we just had a small group of parents here in Wayne County. We're more of a rural area, so to get a small number of parents together is a lot. And then it was my own school district, and then a couple of other neighboring districts that we were just kind of working together, and we're kind of ragtag in the sense that we were disorganized. We didn't really know what to do. And, just one day I was, scrolling through Facebook, and a YouTube video popped up, and I watched it. And there was a mom who gave almost the exact same speech I did at a previous Board of Education meeting, but had the shirt on. I hadn't heard of Moms for Liberty before, but I did a web search and found it. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't have to recreate the wheel, because I was actually thinking about forming our own 501c4 and starting something organized in that sense. But then when I saw Moms for Liberty and they had already laid out the groundwork, I immediately filled out an application to see if we could bring it to our area. And they graciously accepted us, and we started our chapter.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like that's the perfect segue into the first questions that we wanted to ask you is how can somebody join their Moms for Liberty, and what does it take to start a group in their county if there isn't one already?
I would suggest going to the national webpage, momsforliberty.org, and then search your state. And then that will show you all the chapters that already exist in your state. If there is one, there should be an email there, and then you can contact that chapter about more information. But if you do not see your county, because Moms for Liberty is organized by counties, if you go to your state and you don't see a chapter, that might be your signal that you might need to start a chapter in your local area.
And it's very easy to do, because right where Jennifer's saying, if it doesn't pop up, it'll say, get more information about starting a chapter. So
yeah,
I will say it was a fairly simple process, but they do a great job vetting. They do a phone interview. So it's a process, which I'm glad that they do. But it's a fairly simple process. So
yeah.
Good. So that's encouraging to hear that they've got that laid out for folks if they are interested in getting involved in one or starting one. So for me, at least, until I met you guys and went to some of your presentations in your groups and things like that, I kind of wondered, is it just for moms?
Well, no, we have each chapter has an executive board, and for Erie County, our secretary is a dad. And we have dad members, we have grandparent members, including my mom. We have aunts and uncles, and we have community members who have no children in the district but pay taxes, or excuse me, in the county, and they pay
Yeah.
taxes and they're concerned. So I know people are saying, well, why is it called Moms for Liberty? And that's just how it is. We actually have brand new shirts that say dad. But yeah, it's for anybody.
And just to encourage people out there, New York State has one of our newer chapters is in Onondaga County, and the chapter chair there is a dad. His name is Joey Dunaway, and he's a rock star. And we're super excited to have some male energy into the organization. So dads should not be afraid to step up and join us. Dads are just needed 100%, and we welcome all parents and grandparents, like Jackie said, like anyone who wants to advocate for children, whether you have children in your district, in school or not. This is an American endeavor, and all are welcome.
Yeah, and just to second that, I'm not a mom yet, and we just recently moved out of state, and I was able to get connected with our county's Moms for Liberty, and they were like thrilled to have any energy there. So there was definitely no must be mom to enter.
Yeah.
All right. So can you tell us a little bit about what happens at these meetings? Like what can somebody expect when they come to a Moms for Liberty meeting or join the efforts?
Well, I'll start. What I love about Moms for Liberty is they give us the framework, like Jennifer said, the groundwork, but how we go about that is our own, what we make of it. So each chapter, I'm sure, is a little bit different. Here in Erie County, we meet once a month, and we have some committee reports. So we have different committees working on different things. They will give reports. We generally have either a speaker, which a few months ago we had Bridget, and she gave an amazing presentation, or we give some sort of an update, or we'll work on a project. Generally, ours are about 30 to 60 minutes long, and then we do about a 30-minute sort of group breakdown where we break into groups and we can have questions answered. But again, every meeting is different. Jennifer, if you'd like to talk about how you do yours.
Similar, but a little bit different. We don't have any committees. We need some committees, but we haven't gotten that formal yet. Thanks for that little prick there. I appreciate that challenge. But we generally have a topic that we're gonna delve into during that meeting. Carrie has via Zoom done a couple of meetings for us, and we've talked about SEL, social emotional learning, and how that brings in the gender ideology, and how parents can effectively advocate for their students about that. We've had some elected officials come in and talk to us about how to get involved in local proceedings, because local government is best. And so we're trying to encourage and educate parents, because like Jackie calls herself an accidental activist, I call myself an accidental activist. Most of us that I'm finding have not been politically active. Some of us may have been maybe cursorily, aware of what was going on, but not actively doing anything. And so there's a learning curve there of, sometimes people that have not even been registered to vote, or where to vote, or how school board meetings or school board elections happen, or the framework of school boards, or how they operate, the rules of school board meetings. And so a lot of it is just elementary, just preparing them. So if you do want to go into a school and to talk either to a school board or to a teacher or an administrator, we can kind of give them a little bit of idea of what to expect, and that empowers them, that they're not walking in blind. So there's just a lot of, we're kind of hodgepodge in that sense. It just, whatever seems to be happening in our county, we kind of put that on the agenda and we talk about, and then we always have time afterwards that people can talk to us, and we can hopefully help them in their individual situation.
Yeah, that's perfect. I love the local involvement aspect of it, that you're just encouraging everyone to be involved in their districts and providing them that support to do that, and even the knowledge from local politicians and so forth. That's great.
Right. And it sounds like too that you don't have to join a Moms for Liberty group with it all together, or that you know what you're doing, or you can kind of go in unprepared and you guys will train people and help them to know what to do. Jackie, I think when I went to visit you guys, I was so impressed hearing about your committees and just how everything was organized and how you guys divvied up the work. Can you just talk a little bit about that? I know sometimes, you know, group leaders or even just, you know, parents or community members, they look at some of these things going on in our culture and in the schools today, and they feel overwhelmed. And I was just so impressed with how you guys broke up and divvied up that work. Can you just talk a little bit more about that and just kind of explain what you guys do?
Sure. So we've only been, our group, I don't even know, maybe 6 months, maybe 7. I'm trying to think. And so when we started, we sort of took, again, the framework from Moms for Liberty of here are some committees that you might want to start with, or here are some that are really helpful. And then what we did is as members joined, and a lot of people we knew because we had been working, you know, and talking for a year before this, but we basically just, you know, if you sort of treat it like a job, and you know, I'm a manager at my job, and you look at people's strengths and weaknesses, and you see what they're passionate about, because this is not a paid position. We're not getting anything out of this other than, you know, the gratitude that we're fighting for our children. So for instance, you know, I'm sure we're going to get into some of the topics like the books and the sexualization that's in the libraries. For me personally, I don't know why, that's just my passion. I'm really upset about it. And I think it's been going, again, I won't get all into it, but I think it's been going on a long time under our noses. So I lead one of our book committee that does some investigating. And then another person, we have a legislative lead, and she's not same as us. She has no background in it, but she's just really interested in it. She wants to look into it. And that's how we kind of built out. There are still committees we would love to have, but we just don't have the leadership for it right now, and that's okay. We also don't want to spread ourselves too thin. So we kind of just look for what are your strengths, you know, people that are outgoing. We have a membership lead who helps welcome new members and help them, and she's very outgoing. And then we have people that are not, they don't want to speak at a school board meeting, and they help us with doing like mailings and stuff because they don't want to be out in the, so it's just like a job where you just kind of look for people's passion and strength, and then try to use that, because if they're passionate, you got to give them something to do that is helpful.
Yeah, that is great. That is super awesome. Not only in organizing it that way based on people's strengths, but also then feeling like, you know, if somebody is interested in helping, they can come in and talk to you guys and get to know you guys, talk to you guys about these different issues, and then kind of find a place that they're interested in helping. So that's an awesome structure that way. So I guess our next question for you guys is, can you mention some of the things that you guys have worked on that has worked great or been effective, that your group has, you know, said, okay, this is our goal for this, we'd like to accomplish this, and that worked great for you guys? Jennifer, maybe you can share some of those things that you guys have done and have been like, yes, that seemed productive or effective, that was great.
Yeah, I've actually invested in the law book that NYSBA, New York State School Boards Association, puts out every year. School boards who are members of the School Boards Association get these books for free, but I purchased it because I wanted to know what New York State law says about everything in the school. And one thing that I'm really delving into, or what we've delved into in the last year, is school board elections. And a lot of states, the school board elections happen with the regular cycles in November, that their school board candidates are on the ticket, just like their legislators, their assembly, you know, congressman, president, whatever. But in New York State, it's not. Our school board elections are handled at the school district level. They're actually overseen by NYSED, the New York State Education Department. So it's an entirely different animal. So trying to figure out, you know, how to vote, because in our state, you don't have to register to vote in your school boards, and just letting people know, if you live in New York State, you live in a local school district, so you can vote. You just have to be 18, speak English, lived in your home or your address for 30 days, and you can go vote. And so it's just that basic, but then also trying to get people to understand the process of running for school board, and then attending school board meetings. We've been told on multiple occasions, stop me if you've heard this before, Jackie, that school board meetings are not public meetings. They are meetings held in public. So they are run by Robert's rules. And so you can't just come in and start chit chatting and have a conversation. You know, you have to be invited to speak. And that they have policies on how that happens. So we try to educate people. If you do want to go to a school board meeting and you want to speak, this is the platform or the process to speak at your school board. And not all school boards are created equal. Some make it very easy for you to speak, and others, it's a very complex puzzle to sign up to speak, and then also to find the meeting itself, because they are not always easy to find. But then just honestly, just trying to empower parents to let them know that this is a long game. You know, if you're upset about a situation with your kids, you might be able to handle that on a micro level. Like you might get some resolution in a you know, for one particular issue, but know that the state of our schools did not happen overnight. It has taken decades to get us here. So it is going to take us a while to fix it. Although we have seen a lot of small wins along the way that are very encouraging, don't get discouraged and stay. Come find out what's going on, get involved. That's why I love our group, Moms for Liberty, and we have some other groups that we work with, that just know that your voice matters, and that we spend so much time just encouraging people. Like you said, you don't have to have it all together. You don't have to know anything. Just have a curiosity about what's going on in the schools, and then find one of our chapters, and we will help you to figure out where you can fit in. And you know, that's basically what we do. A lot of little things along the way, but nutshell version, everything we do kind of goes under that umbrella.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like the main thing really being like education, like really supporting the individuals who show up, educating them on how to be involved and supporting that process.
Great. Jackie, is there anything that you want to add for, you know, what you guys in Erie County have done that you felt like, yes, this is successful, this is effective?
Yeah, it's interesting, that question. And even Jennifer, while you're speaking, I wish I was here, you know, 6 months in and I could say we made huge strides, and I can rattle off, and I'm gonna, you know, be 100% honest. That's not the case at all. And honestly, I'm sure Jennifer feels the same. We have a private Facebook group for just chapter chairs, so the leads of each district throughout, or each county throughout the country. And it's hard sometimes because other states, the chapter chairs are like, we did this and we got books, you know, at least put away and da da da. And Jennifer and I are like, we live in New York.
Yay.
However, I will say what I've learned that is really amazing and looks like a small win, but is not, is the fellowship. Because many of us felt alone, especially those of us like myself who have spoken out, because again, I'm sure we'll get to this, but a lot of us have had a lot of hatred towards us, which leads other people not to want to speak out. And I can't tell you how many people come to me publicly or privately a lot of times and say, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your group. We have teachers in our group. We have teachers as members. Some of them remain private and some of them are loud and proud, and that's fine. But they have a place to go because they can't speak in their schools. So I guess our biggest accomplishment right now is to have the camaraderie that we have and to be able to band together. And then, as Jennifer said, to educate. Because I have people, we just talked about this at our meeting last week. Someone said, well, you know, I brought this up to my principal or my superintendent and they told me it's a law.
Yeah. So
and I said,
sounds
well,
like that's a good point. That even if, you know, maybe we can't make huge strides at board meetings, that there is still that camaraderie.
Yep, exactly.
Your computer got slightly glitchy there, Bridget. So I think I missed a portion of what you were saying.
Okay, sorry about that, folks.
No, you're fine. But I think, Jackie, you've mentioned a couple times we'll get to this, and I want to get to that now. Let's talk about those things. So let's talk about the book. So you mentioned that's a big passion of yours. Tell us what the passion is, why you're fighting it, and some things that you guys have been trying.
Oh, it's such a long story, so I'll try to keep it very short. But so this all started, part of what is so funny is this this story in the mainstream media that Moms for Liberty, has some huge, money behind it, or that we're told what issues we need to concentrate on.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely not the case. The book situation for me and us locally happened with my own ninth grader. Over the summer, was going into ninth grade in an AP class, and he was given a list of books that pick one of these books and do a report on. Another parent came to me and said, "Hey, is your son in this group?" We went to Barnes and Noble and started to look at some of these books, and they have some pretty intense stuff in it. And I kind of brushed it off like, okay. She started immediately sending me picture messages of the text. And that specific book was Looking for Alaska, which I had not known about. And so that sort of, again, I'll digress for now because it's a long story, but that started it because I went to the teacher, then the principal, and then the superintendent. So I didn't, blow everything up, but, and asked normal questions of why these are being recommended. And the answer was, as Jennifer said, they wanted to fix that situation. So it was very quickly, well, your son can pick any book on the list or any book he wants, and that fixes the situation. And then they wanted me to go away. The problem is he's 14, 15. How many other parents aren't looking at this list at all? First of all, I didn't even know my son was in the class. I mean, I knew he was in the class, but I didn't know this was his assignment. It's given to him. And how many parents, when their kid says, "Oh, I need to buy this book," they just buy it at 14 years old. And when we started to then publicly put it on Facebook and put it out, parents were like, "My kid already went through that class and I bought them that book and I'm not happy about that." And that just snowballed into following certain accounts that shared some of these explicit books. And there were many times where I would see a book posted online and see a graphic, I mean, horrible, horrible sexual things. And I would literally pray and cross my fingers when I looked online, because you can look, most districts have their libraries available online. And I would search a title and I would press search and I would just go, "Please, please, please, please." And there it would be. And so what we did is we have a book committee. We started a Google spreadsheet and we have 28 districts in our county. And we started writing the books that were the most explicit. And we have a committee that searches every single district to see what books. And we basically found out which districts are the worst. And we've started to go to those board meetings and submit FOIAs and ask important questions. Unfortunately, we're being met, with, well, you're just a bigot and whatever else, which is not true. But we're really waking people up because we started posting every book that we found, and we would put right in there, of the 28 districts in Erie County, here are the schools that you can find these in, and people were outraged. So it's right now it's a lot of education.
Mhm. Yeah,
And,
that's a lot of work. So I appreciate all the work you guys are doing. I think that when parents find out what their kids are reading, it can be shocking and really upsetting, because it's about protecting that childhood innocence and protecting them from information that's going to be harmful to them at an inappropriate age, and we really appreciate what you're doing. Yeah, sorry, Jennifer, you were going to say something.
No, that's okay. What I found really fascinating is when we haven't necessarily taken that on as a chapter, but we have individual parents who have come to us and we've given them the tools and they've delved into it. We have one mom who started her own website for her district, and she has all the books and the excerpts of those books, for parents to go look at in her school district. But when we go to school board meetings and parents ask, the school board, a lot of the school board members are looking around at the table like, "I don't know, how do we get these books in our school?" And some of them have done presentations and talked about, and the librarians won't come talk to us because apparently we're very scary people. And so usually an admin will do a presentation on behalf of the librarian and say that, well, the librarians can't read every title. They have anywhere from 1,000 to 1,300 new titles every year. They can't possibly read them all. So then the next question is, well, then how do they find out about them? And they have publications that come from the American Library Association, and there's a school library version of that, but mainly it comes from the ALA. And the most recent president elected, gosh, I can't think of her name. I can't think of her name off the top of my head. I should have wrote it down. But she went on Twitter after she was elected, and she was proud, and that's a personal accomplishment, great for her. But she said that she proudly brings her background as a Marxist lesbian to her role, and if you go to the ALA website, you will see a lot of links on there about the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that is a staple in all of our schools. And the ALA actually has their own branch that gives awards specifically to LGBTQ type books, or formatted, or that genre. And so they recommend, look at this is an award winning book. This must be in your school because it has won awards. It's not like it's a Newbery Award, but it's an LGBTQ award. But they say, oh, there's an award here. So well, this is why we have it. And a lot of times they don't even know how graphic it is. But when we bring it to their attention, they say that the literary value that the book gives outweighs the explicit nature of the material, and it represents a certain marginalized group, and so therefore it will stay in the library. And my question always is, don't LGBTQ people get offended that the only books that they can find to give children are sexually explicit, that these stories that give voice to their experience, they're not just sexually explicit, they're violently sexually explicit. There is such horrendously violent depictions in these books. It's not just sexual activity, it is the most egregious. This is probably why Jackie is so impassioned by it, because they may be fictional stories, but kids are reading about other kids being abused. And when you get it from your school, and your librarian checks it out and says, this is a good book for you to read to understand the marginalized community, these kids are like, holy cow, someone like me is getting raped in this story. Is that okay? But when it comes from a school library and not a public library, or not bought at a store, there's a level of authority that is added to that adds to the travesty and the abuse that our children are exposed to. That's why, not to speak for Jackie, but I feel that. And I've stolen so many of Jackie's graphics about these books, because she's really fantastic at putting when she delves into this stuff, she makes these great graphics that are attractive to look at, not the content, mind you, but and they catch your eye and it draws you in, and so you can see what is in these books. So Jackie does does a great job at that.
Thank you, Jennifer. I wanted to add two quick things if I could. First of all, one of the things we've brought up to some of the school boards is think about the people, the students who have been sexually abused. And maybe, they've already dealt with it and maybe they haven't. And there are plenty of books, especially even the ones that were on my son's list, that dealt with rape, both heterosexual and homosexual. So how does that child, pick a book on this list? Maybe they've been abused, doesn't know that's in the book, and then reads that scene. That's traumatic. And we had a parent actually speak to one of the boards about that. And it just goes over their head. And I just can't imagine. And the second quick thing I wanted to say is that many of us in Moms for Liberty, I know myself, have been attacked for being anti-LGBTQ, especially with the book issue. And what I always say, and for whatever reason they don't listen, is I pick out books that have sexually explicit photos or text. For whatever reason, the majority of them end up being LGBTQ. I don't know why, but I pick out books, and I have posted books that have heterosexual rape, and I don't like those either. We had, I forget the title, but the book that's popularly been put out there that has the dad raping the daughter multiple times and impregnating her. I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with any sexual explicit material, homosexual, trans, or heterosexual. But for whatever reason, when we find these books, a lot of them end up being LGBTQ. So they're not going to believe me, but that is just how it happens. And again, with like Jennifer said, I wonder why. Like, I just don't understand why, if you're going to have an LGBTQ character, why it has to involve sex.
And oh gosh, I had a thought and it fleeted. It's just gone. But oh geez, it was so good. Maybe it'll come back.
It'll come
Um,
back.
yeah, but it was about the books and the ALA. They like when they make recommendations to the school, they do not give age appropriate ratings. They just say these are good books. So they might be like there's one author, Ellen Hopkins, her books, and she's got like 14 titles, and there's graphic material in every single one of them. And they are written to young adults, like 18 and older. But her books are in junior high libraries. So children as young as, 9 or 10 could get these books. They're not written for them. The ALA, the American Library Association, recommends them as good books. And even people who have reviewed her work say, yeah, they're really fantastic and they're poignant, but they're not, I don't recommend them for children. And every single one of her books are in most schools and they're very explicit.
I will
we've
say on the
seen even in
national level,
elementary schools too, which is really concerning that
Mhm.
and recommended by the ALA too, recommended to improve diversity in an elementary
Mhm.
level classroom. But again, this isn't about diversity. This is about the sexualization of our kids, and having sexual content in an elementary classroom is not appropriate. So, yeah, sorry, Jackie.
no, actually, you just reminded me of something else. I mean, my youngest two are 5 and 6. They're in kindergarten and first grade. And one of the books, because I purchased a bunch of the books to have at our meeting to show them. One of the books that I purchased is called the Pronoun Book, and it's for elementary school children. And my 5 and 6-year-old are still learning pronouns. They'll tell me a story about their friend Sally at school, and I know she's a girl, and they'll say he, blah, 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 blah. And I'll say, oh no, that's a she. And we'll talk about it because they are learning nouns and pronouns and adjectives. So to then provide them a pronoun book that says, well, he can be she and then they're they, and it just doesn't make sense. It's honestly, it's sick. It's sick for children, for small children. It messes with their minds and it's confusing. And so it doesn't have to be at the high school level. We are seeing the sexually explicit, the rape, and the graphic novels that have pictures. But at the elementary level, we're seeing nicer titles that are gorgeously illustrated and seem harmless. That's honestly what worries me more, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate what you guys have shared about what you're doing there. And just looking at our time here, we've probably got time for one or two more of our questions, and then we'll switch to questions that are coming in from folks viewing our webinar. So if you guys could speak a little bit to speaking at the board meetings. You guys touched on this a little bit, but just share it to us, like what advice or tips would you have for parents who are interested in going to their board and speaking out against maybe these books or maybe other ways that kids are being sexualized or taught this gender ideology, which Feed My Sheep has been speaking out against for a while now. If you guys could just share some tips for speaking to schools, that would be awesome.
Well, I'll just say that you definitely want to look into your district. Even within Erie County, every district is different. In my county that I live in, you can walk right into the meeting and there's a sign-up sheet and you sign right up. And there's a certain limit on the number of minutes you have based on how many people are there, with a maximum of 5 minutes. But you go right down the road, and the next district over, you have to basically pre-register to speak. So you definitely, people always say, how do you find this stuff? I'm like, I just Google my district Board of Education and it just comes up. And you just want to look at that because you don't want to be prepared to speak and then find out you had to pre-register. So
One thing I would say is definitely be prepared. Like Jackie said, you do that preliminary work, you find out you can speak, you signed up, and know your time limit because we do have limits. In our county, we vary from anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes that you can speak. I would say, especially if you're not used to public speaking, write it out and then read it and then time
Absolutely.
yourself to make sure you get it all in. And then go through that a couple of times because your nerves will get the better of you. And muscle memory works even in public speaking. So preparation is key. And if you get more fluent or more accustomed to it, I mean, you don't necessarily have to prep as much, but I can attest to preparation really got me through those first several times that I spoke, or if I'm talking about a new subject that I need to make sure I got all my I's dotted and my T's crossed, so no one can say that I'm misinformed, because I want to make sure that what I speak to has fact based, not just emotion, not just how I feel about it, but I can maybe back it up with I feel this way, and I'm not wrong to feel this way because so and so.
Yeah.
And you can, depending on your district, you can either, especially if you have facts or articles that you're sort of quoting from, depending again on your district, you can either have those printed and hand out prints, or a lot of times with me, I just follow up with an email and I'll say, per what I said yesterday, here's where I quoted from, here are the links. I'd love to hear your feedback. There never is any feedback, but
Yeah, and I think that that's a good perspective to take. That's something that Bridget and I have been talking about, is taking the perspective of educating whenever we can, because there are a lot of folks in the school districts who just don't know about what's happening and don't know about the dangers or harms of comprehensive sex ed or gender ideology, or of these sexualizing books, or the confusion that's being caused. And so just taking the opportunity to provide resources like you mentioned, or I think that that's going to really make a difference for many, not for all, but for many. So I think one of the questions I want to squeak in here before we switch to questions from the audience is, what advice do you have for parents today? Especially, your parents, and you're working with other parents. So what advice would you give to parents raising children today?
my biggest thing right now that's really been speaking to me is to follow your intuition and your gut, especially if you are a parent. I think too often we push aside what we feel is wrong because society is telling us that we're crazy. And there have been many times, this fight is an up and down battle. It is very emotional. And it's easy, especially in New York State, to get down and to feel defeated. Something that I shared at our last meeting that helped me sort of over the holiday season when we took a break is I was listening to a podcast and the woman said, maybe you're feeling like, why are we fighting this fight? Because it's not winnable, especially in New York State. Like it's impossible. And the answer is we're fighting this fight because our children matter. And whether we win or lose doesn't really matter. What matters is we're fighting for our children. And I know another quote that I sort of saw at the beginning of COVID was, in 20 years, I want to be able to tell my children that I did not stay silent. And that for me personally really hit me because I don't want my kids looking back on their childhood and saying, Mom, why were we in masks for 2 years and you said nothing? Why were these books in our schools? And now I'm a parent and I'm like, how, so any of those topics. And again, it's a personal thing, but if you really dig deep into your intuition and what you're feeling is wrong, and then you find others who, wow, like I said, when you watch that YouTube video of Moms for Liberty, like, wow, I'm not crazy. There are others who feel this way. That just helps build your confidence. So I'd say trust yourself.
I would say really make sure that you're nurturing your relationships with your children. I have teenagers and I have grown children, and I can say the difference between raising my grown children, and I have a 15 and a 16-year-old now, is night and day. I mean, we had cell phones, but we were just getting into them when my older kids, they're in their late 20s. But anyway, then I had 15 and 16, and I thought my kids were doing okay, and I wasn't monitoring them as much as I should have been. So as much as I am angry about what is going on in the schools, I wasn't checking in with my kids as much as I should have been, and seeing what they were seeing even on their own time. And so I'm making that you might, I mean, my husband and I are still married, we have an intact family. You would think that we're doing okay because statistically we should be, but it really doesn't matter what our family structures look like anymore, because a lot of this stuff is just everywhere. And so don't take your eye off the end game of, you are still the parent. It's our responsibility and our desire to raise our children right, and that has to start with us just staying engaged. And I gotta tell you, 15 is, I don't know, 15. 15 is the toughest age of all of them. I'd go back to diapers in a heartbeat. I mean, I love my children. I love you. But it is, it is, it is extremely difficult to guide them at this point if you because they are spreading their wings. They want to be more independent, and you want to let them be more independent, but it's just coming at them all the time, and it's everywhere. So you just definitely have to check in because this confusion is really causing a lot of anxiety and depression.
Yeah. Well, my oldest is 10, so you're not giving me much hope then to look forward to when she's 15. Thanks there, Jennifer.
Jennifer, is your 15-year-old a boy or a girl?
She's a girl. I have,
Okay,
yeah,
girl. See,
boy, girl.
my 15-year-old is a boy, so maybe that's why he's actually my easiest, but so maybe that's it.
I don't know. Yeah.
But
Well, the firstborn. So there is something to that. Yeah.
you are very right though, I think, in addressing the fact that parents need to actually parent. I think we
Mhm.
live in a day and age where you know, we send our kids to school for most of the day. If people are religious and they, you know, bring their kids to church, they go to Sunday school or youth group or whatever. And parents, I think, have really forgotten, or maybe they haven't learned how to actually parent and train up their kids and teach them to think through these things and to make healthy choices. And so I think, yeah, we're realizing now in some cases it might feel like it's too late for some parents. I think some other parents are catching up with this and realizing, man, I actually need to parent. I can't just hand my kids over to others and expect that they're going to do a great job.
And not be the
Mhm.
best friend, I think, is the huge thing, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
like we recently had an issue and we removed some apps from my 15-year-old's phone and it was the end of the world, and
Mhm.
sorry.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
That is what it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So before we get to text in questions from our audience, I just want to remind those of you guys who are watching live what the number is. It is 833-942-6158. So again, if you guys have any more questions, please feel free to text them in so that while we have a few minutes left, we'll try to get to them. And Carrie, you can go ahead and start with those if you'd like.
Awesome. So we had one comment. Someone just wanted to mention to you ladies that they're just impressed with your commitment and energy and passion that you're contributing. And somebody wanted to know if you have partnered with any lawyers in your area to be more effective and maybe what that looks like.
Heard that question on one of your other webinars that you did as well. So we haven't actually hired any lawyers, but we have sought advice from some lawyers. What's nice also, we had a circumstance during the campaign season. As a 501c4, we're not allowed to campaign or lobby or anything like that. We hosted some candidates, however, just to speak, and someone turned us into whatever it is at New York State, and we were, they opened a case basically. And what was nice is we have the support from National. So they were able to get me in touch with a lawyer and he was awesome. And we were able to just put that to rest and that nothing came of that. So that was really helpful. I think the biggest thing with lawyers, and this was the same as on your previous webinar, is having a local lawyer that understands New York State and also is going to go up and fight against them, which is not always the case. Also, I've been deep into some of the educational law. And unfortunately, like a lot of law, I'm learning, it's very open to interpretation.
Yeah.
And so even with the books, one of the first things as we talked about it as just parents, we were like, isn't this pornography? They can't distribute pornography. This should be an easy case.
Mhm.
And in New York State, when you start to look at it, it's like, well, what is pornography? And da 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 da. So it's so easy to say, just hire a lawyer and you can win, but not so.
Yeah. I think okay. I keep hearing so many times that education shouldn't be political. You're politicizing education. No, education has always been political. This is the first time that they faced political opposition, I think, in decades, and that's what the difference is. And like what Jackie was saying, there's not a lot of lawyers who have the political will to take this and try to get it before a judge because a lot of judges won't touch these cases either. So while we are seeing, especially with the mandate issue, we are seeing victories in the mandate portion of the, the things that we've dealt with in the last couple of years. But if you'd look at those have been funded by big organizations that have mega donors and a lot of money backing behind them. And I'm thankful for that. But contrary to popular belief, Moms for Liberty is not getting dark money. We are not funded by the Koch brothers. We do not have massive bundles of cash, anywhere. So we can't personally start funding those types of things yet. But I mean, it's on the list.
Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, I think you guys were also getting, or at least touching on those obscenity exemptions, which is a real problem that, yes, this is pornographic material, but unfortunately, if it's for educational purposes, which it just being in a school somehow seems to be, then somehow they're exempt from those laws. But Bridget, so there's one directed toward you. Can you share just a little bit about the book, The Sexual Holocaust?
Yeah, sure. Little off topic here in some ways, and in some ways it totally relates. So the Sexual Holocaust is a book that I wrote with Dr. John Sanford, and what it does is it looks at sexuality from a global perspective and how sexuality at large, like anything goes sexuality, just kind of anybody can decide what they want. How is that affecting people physically, emotionally, socially, and spiritually? And that relates a lot to what we're talking about and seeing now in the schools, because what's happening in the schools with these issues, it's like a microcosm of just what we're seeing at large. And yet what's happening though is when this affects children, now it impacts the rest of their life. So now you've got kids. I mean, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused by the time they're 18 years old. And, some of the headlines that I've been reading about just sexual abuse cases that have been coming out, or pornography cases, or things like that are happening even within school districts. It's so scary. But so that's basically what the Sexual Holocaust is about. It does relate to what we're talking about with the schools, just because it's in the schools, and it's worse in the schools in a sense because of the way it's going to impact that child the rest of their life.
Right. Yeah. And the second half of that question you already answered. It was, how is Moms for Liberty taking action to be involved with this? And that's exactly it. So I appreciate you addressing that, Bridget. Someone mentioned that Moms for Liberty in their community is also addressing liberal books about other topics, like, for example, systemic racism or critical race theory. And so somebody's just interested in knowing your experience with that, or if you guys get involved with other topics besides the sexuality.
We in Erie County have some of those books on our list. So it started as the sexual content. And then we've just sort of added books. Honestly, there's no rhyme or reason. It's just as we find a book title. I mean, 90% of the books we didn't even know existed, so it's just as we find a title, if we find that there's critical theory, whether it's queer theory or race theory, it gets added to our list and we look into it. But it started with the sexualization, but it's both.
It is both. And we started looking at the critical race theory, and that the books that address that or contain that type of mentality in there. But going to school board meetings, it seems like most of the framework is going toward the they call it critical gender theory now, and I guess that's probably why our focus has shifted mostly to the sexual content, because I don't really hear, and it might be because of where we live, I'm not really hearing a lot of that discussion. It's mostly the sexual stuff, and like the LGBTQ club and the inclusiveness and the pride flags and all the flags. So that seems to be more of the focus of what's going on in our area. So I think that's probably why our focus has mainly gone in that direction.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you, guys. And I think we should do the last question, which is if you guys could talk about just how you deal with any adversity that you guys have faced.
Oh, I will take this one first. No, we laugh about, it's one of those, if you don't laugh, you cry. And I have cried. So it started for me personally with the school board election, never in my wildest dreams did I think, you know, what came after me during that election would, you'd think I was running for, you know, governor. But that, you know, continued into Moms for Liberty. And I'm sorry if you can hear my dog outside. But what I've done and what we've done in Moms for Liberty locally is, first of all, laugh. Second of all, understand that those words mean nothing, and that they have no truth. And third of all is my favorite, which is to kill with kindness. I learned during the election because they meaning people in opposition, you know, they did what anyone would do during like a presidential election. They scanned my social media and anything they could pull, they could. So I've learned a lot to teach my children of don't post this, or make sure that you're stating what you mean and not nuanced, but also not give anything for anyone to say badly about you. I've certainly had obscenities yelled at me, and I've been called horrible, horrible things, both to my face and online. But with 100% confidence, you will not find me arguing with them on Facebook and calling them names. I might argue a little bit, but not calling names. You won't find me at a school board meeting ever yelling obscenities. And so I think when a neutral person looks at the situation and sees this group over here who says hashtag hate has no home, and all they're doing is spewing hate and just nastiness, and they see our group who has very strong beliefs and a worldview, but we say it respectfully and with kindness, I think most people can understand where we're coming from.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that. The national founders, Tina and Tiffany, they have a slogan, you know, joyful warrior. And I just keep that in my mind because there's through all this, and Jackie's right, you know, you get some people who don't, it's usually people who don't know us, who've never talked to us, don't know us personally. They have us all figured out. You know, they know that we're racist, bigots, and homophobic and everything else. But they've never talked to us personally, so they have no clue. But they have us all figured out, but they really don't. But it's hard to get those accusations back, you know, on a consistent basis. But I just always remember, you know, we have to be joyful warriors, because, and I had to check myself a couple of times, because you can get so angry in it. There's anger comes up for so many different reasons. Why aren't people seeing this for what it is? Why aren't people paying attention? Why aren't there more people involved? But it still results in anger. And I got to be like, anger was my personality, and that's not who I am. And I wasn't comfortable with that. And I had to check my spirit and pray about it and just remember, okay, I'm a joyful warrior. I can fight because this is a war, but I can do it with a smile on my face. And another thing that helps is always believe that there's a video camera on you, and that someone might, because someone's going to try to catch you out. And if you almost like a, you know, candid camera kind of a thing, just assume that someone is trying to catch you and bait you, and just be prayed up and be prepared for that. And just stay true to why you started doing this to begin with. And it's not because you hate people, it's because we care about our children and the future of our country.
Yeah. Thank you both so much for everything that you've shared, and, you know, just the work that you guys are doing in your districts. We really appreciate it. So thank you guys so much for joining us this evening. For those of you who are watching live, we will post the video, and then you guys can see this too and refer to it again later. So we hope you all have a great evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.